our third international expert and speaker that binds together the two experiences. Camilo Navarro, grown up in Chile. He's the co-founder and COO of Wheel the World, a highly specialized, very impressive tour operator that helps people with all sorts of impairments to find accessible accommodation and tours and itineraries in a tailored manner, based on verified and, for example, concerning the width of doors and also the height and the measures of furniture. And what is it? Now, Camilo Navarro will brief us. Where is he, Camilo?
All right. So, unfortunately, the world is still not accessible. I personally believe that accessibility should be addressed the best way possible. We should allow people with accessibility needs and seniors to stop being detectives, to stop being, people that spend hours and hours in order to find accessible information. I started a company called Wheel the World to solve that problem. A little bit about what we are trying to do is to allow this to happen more often. People with accessibility needs having incredible experiences when they travel. How I got here was because of a friend's trip. My best friend, a co-founder, Alvaro, who I met when I was 5 years old, we both went to the same school, elementary school, and middle school, all the way to high school. And this guy, when he was 18 years old, he got involved in a car accident. As a consequence, he became a wheelchair user. And since then, I understood that the world is not really designed for people with accessibility needs. Of course, that was way harder for him than for me, but still, I was affected by the lack of accessibility. Every time that we wanted to do something, like let's say we wanted to go to a bar, to a restaurant, to hang out, to go to the stadium or go to a club, everything was an obstacle. Like there was no ramp, so we couldn't, I have to lift all the way the wheelchair, or the accessible bathroom wasn't available for us. So it was constantly dealing with obstacles and obstacles and obstacles. As you may notice by my accent, I'm from Chile. And in Chile, there is a place called Patagonia, Torres del Paine. And it happens that in a solo backpack trip that I did, one of the things that I thought was like how amazing would be to bring my best friend to this place. So I started researching information about this, becoming a detective, essentially. Like how could I bring my best friend to this place? And I realized that there was no information on how we could get to that place, how we could transport, what type of activities we could do in the park, where we could stay at, like how accessible was going to be the hotel room, if there was going to be any accessible restroom in that hotel, and there was no information. So essentially, we decided to start researching how we could do that trip, and we realized that there was a one-wheel wheelchair that we figured out to acquire, Juliette wheelchair, designed in France. And with that wheelchair, we realized that the trip could be done. So the destination reached out and decided to basically create an online guide with us so we could do the trip, but also allow future visitors to repeat the same trip we were going to do. A few years ago, we embarked ourselves into this crazy expedition. And it happened that we became the first expedition in history to conquer Torres del Paine in Patagonia. This was a trip that no one has done it before. It was a crazy adventure. I wouldn't do it again. It was too hard, but it was also very amazing. And it was the best trip of my life, and also Alvaro's best trip of his life. So, as you may notice by the video here, we got sponsored by the North Face back then, and we decided to do this very short documentary, and the story went viral. So even Mark Zuckerberg posted a video of these crazy people that just climb Patagonia. So these started generating a lot of noise, and we started receiving hundreds of people with accessibility needs that they were requesting us to organize the trip for them. At this point, we weren't thinking about starting a company. It was just a friend's trip. We wanted to do an epic adventure. But the press and the media expanded so much that actually we started receiving requests from other destinations who thought like, why don't you guys replicate this online guide, but in your destination? For those who have visual disabilities, what I'm sharing here, there is an amazing short video showing how, I'm climbing this like huge mountain that, by the way, looks like Alaska. It's like glaciers and granite rocks. It was just an incredible, epic expedition that we did. And as I'm describing here, that also we got into the last part of the hike, which is the Mirador of Torres, which is the most scenic scene of the epic scene of the whole circuit. Continuing with the presentation, my co-founders and myself, we moved to the States, where today I am based in San Francisco in California, because we went to study at UC Berkeley, where honestly I didn't study anything, because we were bombarded by the virality of the trip. So what happened was that there were so many people that wanted to replicate the trip. There were so many different destinations who wanted to, replicate this online guide, but in their own destinations, that it was kind of like an aha moment where we realized, like, there's something broken here. And I'm not talking about outdoor places like Patagonia. I'm talking about places like Berlin, New York, London, Tokyo. We were receiving requests like, guys, why don't you replicate this online guide, but in our destination? So we realized that the market wasn't addressing as they should people with accessibility needs. So we realized that also people with disabilities, they were spending millions and billions of euros every single year in traveling, having terrible experiences. I couldn't agree more with the previous presentations that ultimately the root cause of these problems are always the same. It's the lack of information. In fact, here in Europe, because of that lack of information, almost 150 million trips that are being taken every single year, 80% of them are having bad experiences due to the lack of accessible information, due to the lack of reliable accessible information. This information is very fragmented. It's everywhere. It's very hard to find. It is unreliable. If you go to sites like Booking.com, Expedia, you won't find this accessibility information you need in order to make an informed booking decision. So again, what you need to do is to become a detective and just call to the hotel multiple times to make sure that you're going to get what you need. And we thought that that's extremely unfair. At the same time, the needs of people with accessibility they reside on each individual. It is incorrect to infer that a wheelchair user has the same type of need that another person in a wheelchair. People, they have individual needs, so what could be accessible for one user could be completely inaccessible for another. And this is the importance of having this information available. Whether you're a restaurant, a museum, an hotel, a transportation company, having that information in the front of your website for those who are looking for accessibility is critical. Without that information, you cannot make an informed decision. And most likely, you're going to have a bad experience. So when you ask hospitality businesses in general how accessible or inaccessible they are, the best answer that they can give you is like, well, we are ADA compliant, or we're just compliant and following the norms. Norms are not enough. Norms doesn't solve and provide the best user experience for this type of user. As a consequence, billions of euros are being lost by these travel and hospitality businesses. I always like to make a small, short analogy on how this affects people without disabilities. So the way that this affects people without disabilities is picture yourself coming here to Berlin from wherever you came. You arrive to your hotel room and you start walking around the room and the floor is kind of sticky, so it's very uncomfortable for you to walk around. And then you want to circulate to the other side of the room, but there's furniture blocking your way, so you need to go, on top of it and you jump on it, or like it's very uncomfortable. And then you want to get into the bed, but it's so high that you need to climb on it. And then you want to use the bathroom, but the door is locked. We could all agree that that would be unacceptable, that would ruin your trip. Let me tell you that 80% of people with accessibility needs are facing those type of problems. For example, a wheelchair user that arrives to a property where the carpet is so thick they can barely move the wheelchair. If they don't have the furniture organized in the right way, they cannot circulate properly throughout the room. If they don't have the exact bed height, they cannot transfer. And if they don't have the specific rolling shower, they can not even use the bathroom. 80% of people with accessibility needs are facing those type of problems when they travel. And again, we think that that's extremely unfair. And this number is growing. It is growing. Airlines, for example, are reporting every time more that they're having, and you can see that when you go to any airport, really. I see every time more people, with accessibility needs around the airport. And this number keeps growing fundamentally because the reality is that population is aging. And every time there's more people with accessibility needs coming to this new segment. And we think that, again, this is something that needs to be addressed. When we realize at the same time that when you normally are planning a trip and you look for information, in any destination, again, that information is such a hard thing to get. As a consequence, you go and you travel with a lot of uncertainty. I've been into many places of the world with my friend, and I can talk with a lot of authority that it is just terrible. Like, you go to places and there's always a surprise. There's always something that was missing. There was always, like, we couldn't get the accessible vehicle that we needed to transfer from point A to point B. We couldn't get into the hotel room. We got that different room, not the one that we needed. The same thing, even in the AI world, you cannot find, accessible itineraries because, again, this information fundamentally is not available. Us as a company, without that if that accessible information were to exist, I wouldn't be here in front of you. Because of that accessibility information that we are raising is why we're capable of now allowing users to get from just basic ADA or any accessibility standard, compliance, into something that you can trust and you can use and you can make sure, and we guarantee that that's the right information, and we make recommendations to those users for them to travel as they should. We collect more than 200 data points per properties, per infrastructure, travel and hospitality infrastructure, and with that information, we combine them with their accessibility profiles, and with those accessibility profiles, we can make a match between what are their specific individual needs and what is the accessible information that matches those specific accessibility needs. So this technology that we put together is allowing us to guarantee 100% that those users are going to have an accessible experience. Moreover, what we are providing is a complete suite of accessibility products to our partners, our destination and travel and hospitality businesses that we are onboarding into our ecosystem. Specifically, we personally send over people to those facilities to map those 200. It's not that we are just making them up. We are sending over mappers who are collecting this accessible information on field using our app, those more than 200 data points, the altitude of the bed, the width of the doors, the type of floor available, the specific rolling shower that is available in that property. And with that information, we can verify that the information is accurate and reliable. At the same time, we are allowing that information to live not only in our platform, but also in our clients' platform, so they can expand the reach of users, so those users can find this information more easily. And finally, we're also giving them all the tools for them to improve over time. Accessibility is not just a target that you need to hit. It's a marathon that you're gonna, go through in time, and you're gonna be improving, and you're gonna have the tools for you to improve over time. So in our system, we're providing them assessments, and with those assessments, travel and hospitality businesses, they can know and learn how to improve, why they should improve in order to get to a better standard that ultimately will allow them to get more users with accessibility needs and seniors. Our company has grown to 140 destinations around the world with 20,000 listings that we have mapped already. And we're very proud of this number. And I'm not showing this just like to show off and say that we're great, that we are growing so rapidly, is because the problem is just massive. It is it is very important to address accessibility, especially because population is aging rapidly. Our destination have acknowledged that, and as a result, we have been able to generate more than 60 million euros in those destinations who are our actual partners. So I always like to say that accessibility at the end is just not, it's not a checkbox. It's a massive business opportunity as well. It's something that people with accessibility needs and seniors, they really deserve. And we're committed to build the best company possible for people with accessibility needs and seniors. We have great investors who are really believe and behind our company, top executive from the largest travel and hospitality companies who are supporting us along the way. And again, I show this to prove that ultimately all of you who are involved in different travel and hospitality businesses or companies are trying to address accessibility, this is an important issue that needs to be solved. Because if you think somehow, disabilities is the largest minority in the world that sooner or later every one of us will be part of as a consequence of aging. All of you, I can guarantee that you will have accessibility needs at some point of your life. In this sense, I am convinced that the world will become 100% accessible. It will become 100% accessible no matter what, with or without us. Because seniors, people with accessibility needs, are growing. They're going to keep pushing toward things, making things more accessible, products and services. But those who take action first are not only going to be doing the right thing, but also like the smart thing, as someone said here. Like, I couldn't agree more. There's a huge business opportunity and also the right thing to do. My name is Camilo Navarro. I'm one of the co-founders of this organization. Thanks for having me here.